Hello, hi everyone, welcome to Thoughts of a Whole Brain Man. This introduction is just to explain what we're going to be doing here and how this came about. There's a couple of parts of it in its history. Um, One was that at the beginning of the COVID lockdown in the UK, a naturalist called Chris Packham was self-isolating with his stepdaughter at the time, who was also a naturalist. And they are presenters of a BBC television program called Spring Watch, which every year in the springtime has cameras in nest boxes and outside fox dens and badger sets. And as nature wakes up and birds create chicks and they hatch and fledge, you get to watch these on live cameras. And it's like a nature soap opera for about 3 weeks on live television. So, having realized that there's suddenly lots of children at home, isolated, cut off from their friends, they had an idea. They went on to, I think it was a YouTube festival, and for about half an hour, they did a spontaneous chat about their bird feeders and the birds on the bird feeders. Chris Packham, being a naturalist, has all sorts of oddities in his collection of things, and so he got out a skull and he described the skull. He put a penny near it to kind of show its size, and had a little competition. Can you name whose skull is this? The next day, it proved very, very popular. And by the end of the week, BBC technicians were getting involved because they're at home as well. And before too long, these things were running on multi-platform, 1 hour long, and they did more than 100 of them. They had guest speakers. It was fantastic. And I watched this and I thought, what can I do? Because a part of my studies and explorations in life is that I have a pagan background. I joined the witchcraft coven when I was 20 and spent a few years leaping over bonfires in the woods at night. But there was a lot of learning involved. So I have an esoteric background. I'm a practicing astrologer. I've been teaching astrology for 34 years. And once I began to do readings for people, I realized that this art has the capacity to reveal dynamics of a person's life. And of course, when you're looking at human lives, you're entering into a very broad rainbow of possibilities, quite literally, from Auschwitz to Olympus. So I quickly realized that I need some kind of training, some kind of therapeutic tool. And I'd experimented with self-hypnosis when I was 20. So I thought that would be the thing. So I looked at different hypnotherapy courses, couldn't find anything that kind of fitted completely. And somebody recommended I go and meet this man called Michael Harrison, who was teaching an eclectic synthesis, a blend of hypnotherapy with a field called NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and another field called psychobiology, which looks at the relationship between language and physiology. We got on really well. I trained with him. He then retired, being in his early 60s, and he gave me the copyrights to his training materials. So I've been teaching that, and since the early 90s. I was among the first 6 people to be awarded a Master of Arts degree in cultural astronomy and astrology in 2002, 2003. And I did another master, a Master of Science in Psychosocial Studies between 2008 and 2010. And in the academic world, there is this kind of inclination towards people are either arts or science. You're either a right brain, imaginative, creative person, or you're a calculating, evidence-based science person. There are some occasions where left and right brain come together. Playing music is one of them, right? If you talk to a drummer, they'll tell you that music is nothing more than the computation of beats divided into, eights, sixteenths, 64s, etc. Whereas if you speak to scientists, sometimes they can have a flowery way of talking about them. You know, there's a conference that takes place every few years called INSAP, the Inspiration of Astronomical Phenomena. And I was at one of these conferences in 2010, and I'd submitted my dissertation for my MSc, and I was kind of eagerly kind of anticipating and waiting for the result. Um, and while I was waiting for the result, this conference took place. And one particular tea break, all the people that I knew had gone off to various tea shops. I didn't know where they were. So I was sitting on my own, and there was this chap sitting near me that I didn't know very well. And I got a message on my phone. So I looked at this message on my phone, and it said that I'd been awarded a distinction, not just for my dissertation, but for the Master of Science degree overall. And I couldn't help but exclaim out loud, "Oh, I got a distinction for my MSc." And this chap nearby said, because he'd looked at the listing of people, when you sign up, there's a list of delegates and our kind of academic journeys thus far. And he said, "Oh," he said, "I thought you were MA." And quickly as anything, I heard myself say, "Yes, I'm a whole brain man." And I thought, hey, what a good line. And I thought, oh, Thoughts of a Whole Brain Man. That could be an album. It could be a blog. It could be, all sorts of things. I really like the idea. Thoughts of a Whole Brain Man. So I made a mental note of it. And I've been waiting all this time for there to be an emergent sort of vehicle for this. But back to that COVID thing, right? So having watched Chris Peckham and his stepdaughter Megan do incredible things to kind of comfort people and provide them with a sanctuary, a place to belong, So the world is doing this and that, but at this particular time of day, every day, very regularly, you can tune in and watch an otter or, see some birds kind of building a nest and things like this. So in my kind of thought of what can I do, over the years of reading and studying, both formally and informally, I've built up a bit of a library. I wouldn't say it's extensive by any means, but I've got quite a few books. And some of the things that I have on my bookshelves I thought would be very useful for people who were isolated. For example, some of the esoteric books I have describe astral projection, the ability to be able to lucidly have your sense of consciousness leave your body and pass through the physicality of walls and roofs and ceilings and connect with someone else's consciousness who's also passed through walls and doors and ceilings and share time in real time and remember it afterwards. One of my tutors, a very interesting man called Dr. Guy Saunders, he was a drummer as well, and occasionally he'd kind of talk in couplets. You could almost hear he'd go, "Well, and so da 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 da," and you just in your brain you could hear at the end. But he wrote a book after some research he did on kidnap victims who were deprived of light. So they're kept in attics or basements or boxes. And because they had no access to light, they had no access to time. So how did they cope? How did they find a way of being able to deal with a complete inability to know how long time was passing? So a very wide range of books on my shelves, from neuroscience to Spike Milligan poetry, astrology, all sorts of things. And so at 2 o'clock every day, I would switch on Facebook and just talk about some books and the ideas inside them. Sometimes I'd talk about just one single book on its own. At other times, I'd get 2 or 3 books and kind of present them as a pattern or a theme, and not necessarily a theme within a topic. So there might be a neuroscience book that I'm discussing alongside an astrology book, because there's a way of being able to relate the content of both of them together. And this kind of rolled on. What I did find was it became a pressure for me, because I think, what shall I be talking about tomorrow? And I'd look at the bookshelves and think, oh, I haven't talked about that and this for a while. But then I'd have to spend the whole evening kind of rereading these books to familiarize myself with them enough to be able to talk about them. So strangely, in this intensive period, I reread or reconnected with every book that I've read since I was a child, including a childhood book on Born Free. So I think it ended up that I did 100 spontaneous, unplanned lectures in 101 days. I missed one day, so I wasn't very well. And these were just stored on Facebook. And last year in August, I don't know how it happened, but some hacker did something to my Instagram that I still don't understand. And Meta just pulled the plug on all of my Facebook things. I lost everything. I had 4,900 friends. I lost contact with them. I've since found that some of them have passed on. And there was a lady that I used to kind of talk with from time to time since 2009 about her problems, and she'd kind of need to kind of vent about her family, and I'd listen to these stories. And she had cancer for the last 2 years of her life. And of course, we lost touch in August. And I did a search for her in November and found that her daughter had turned her Facebook page into a remembrance because she passed away. And I'd spent all those years being a confident, being a listening ear. And at the very end of her life, I vanished. And I felt dreadful about that, even though it was actually not my fault, nothing to do with me. But I still felt, somehow I'd let the person down. But I was talking to a friend about this towards the end of 2024. And they said, I loved those things you were doing, Book of the Day. They were great. Could you ever do them again? And I said, well, if I do, then, I wouldn't put them on YouTube. I'd record them as hard videos first, so I've got them saved, and maybe upload them to YouTube, And so here we are. So this is the first one, just to kind of welcome you and say hello, give you an idea of what's going to be happening. And you'll find that some of these will be discussions on kind of intellectual things like neuroscience, interpersonal neurobiology. You'll find some of it is about esoteric topics like astrology or tarot or crystals, ley lines. You'll find some of it's about ancient history, the astronomy of Stonehenge, Avebury, and a mixture of things, really, intersped with lots of mythology and sometimes just some ideas that just percolate in my strange brain. And I say strange because if one tries to figure out what normal is, it becomes very difficult. I have a brain that is diagnosed as autistic. So I'm neurodiverse. And that means that, as some people say, I see what others miss, but I miss what others see. And so when I approach a topic, I tend to do it in my own unique Rowanish way, rather than just kind of copy wholesale things that are said. I've got a brain that likes to explore ideas, to use the modern expression, to unpack things and try and get as close to the root or origin of an idea as possible. And so sometimes the things I say might be, within their topic, slightly controversial. For example, when I talk about astrology at some point, you'll hear me saying that there are no influences from planets. Yes, a teacher of astrology for 34 years has just said there are no influences from planets. So how does astrology work then? What is it? Good questions. And we'll be looking at some of those sorts of things as well. Yes, I'm a vegan and I haven't eaten meat since 1991. Oh, I'll discuss at some point the topic of affective neuroscience, which is the neuroscience of emotions. And you might find that there's something about the neurobiology of a human being that is shared by other mammals. Let's just rephrase that. There's something about the emotional dynamics of human experience that is shared by other mammals. I'm not talking about the conscious awareness, the cognitive ability to describe or articulate experience. That's a completely different thing to the feel of it. And there's something about the feeling that is, I guess, the byproduct of certain neural dynamics. And those neural dynamics and patterns and drives and chemistries are shared across the mammalian dynamic of life on Earth. So we've got a lot to discuss, a lot of things to talk about. I have no idea how many of these there are going to be. I have no idea how often or how long this is going to be. I won't be able to do them every day like I did during the lockdown because the world is rolling along and life is happening and I have to work, and breathe and sleep and eat and things like that. And I'm older a little bit, and so I have a lot of health things to consider as well. But I'll do my best to do maybe one a week if I can. There might be weeks where there's one or two. There might be weeks when there aren't any. It'll be relaxed. But if you look at this YouTube channel from time to time, you'll find that over a period of time it grows and there'll be quite a lot of things to look at. All right. So enough of this welcome and introduction. Yes, I'll let you go and let you look to the next thing. Yeah, there might be 2 or 3 things in the index already for you to just kind of take a look at. Okay. Thank you for sharing time here. Comments and things always welcome, but you don't have to. It's fine. Yes, I'll catch up hopefully sometime and maybe hear from you. Take care. Thank you. Bye.